And now, it's time to talk telly with the best TV trio since Ant and Dec dished Bruce. It's time for Luke, Gary, and Matt with the Custardtv Podcast. Let's go!
Still as obsessed about that piece of music as I was last week, it's the Custardtv Podcast for a Tuesday evening. I am Luke, editor and runner. If you knew my physical shape, you'd find that humorous. Of the Custardtv.com, and with me, as always, in a very manly podcast, the most manly I get in a week, we've got Gary and Nat.
Hello.
Hi, I'm the not the editor, and the gaffer of this podcast.
It's somebody said to me about the podcast in the week. They said you got to be careful that you don't get just too many male perspectives. And I know what they mean, but that's why we brought Matt on board.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
You called him lovable on Twitter. Now this.
I know. Well, I take with one hand and I give with one hand and take with the other.
I think we've established that I am the northern one after last week.
The northern one. Yeah, the northern one. Bit like Prince.
Or that northern bloke, I think, was it?
Who's that northern bloke?
Hold on. Since when was Prince the northern one of any kind?
No, no. I'm not saying Prince was northern.
Oh right.
I'm just saying it's just another name. He's just sort of a thing. Yeah. With a squiggle.
Symbol. Whatever it was. Yeah.
If you want to insult any of us via Twitter tonight, we can take it on our many chins. At Luke Custardtv for me.
At the Gary Show for I.
And at Matt's TV Bites.
And how many T's does that have?
Well, there's 2 T's in Matt, and then there's 2 T's in the rest of it.
So that's 4.
So in total, that's 4 T's.
Yeah.
And we're not even a maths podcast, so imagine.
We're not?
Yeah, but I think occasionally. I think it's good because we probably appealed to Brian Cox there. We're just doing some numbers.
I was thinking of
numbers.
Numbers.
There, Luke.
I know, what are numbers?
Matt's northern, you're West Country, and I'm very much the London element.
You're the Cockney rhyming slanger.
Alright,
which in itself is probably Cockney rhyming slang for something. What we do on here is we talk about telly, the best and the worst on the box. We preview what's coming so you don't miss it, and we tell you what's not worth your time and effort to sit down in front of. Not a hugely busy week on the TV channels themselves, but what I like is there's a feeling in the air that there are things slowly approaching.
Are going to be quite packed, aren't they?
I have a feeling I'm going to be talking to you a lot in the next couple of weeks, specifically about Broadchurch, which is coming to ITV very soon, which I'm very much a fan of.
And Lightfields as well.
And Lightfields is equally brilliant as well, yes.
I saw the preview for Broadchurch. This is the David Tennant one, isn't it?
It is, very much.
And correct me if I'm wrong, ITV don't often do 8-part dramas.
To be fair, I don't know what the last one was, or, as you say, whether there was even one.
That's a good point. And I suppose Lewis is normally 6 or 7, but they're normally broken down into single, double stories, aren't they?
An 8-part for one story is quite exciting because it gives a lot of place for the story to go. They're not rushing it. We don't want to spoil it too much because it's not on for a while, but it's really worth watching.
Let's talk about what's
Let's talk about now. Firstly, we asked you on Twitter this afternoon, what show would you bring back? Now, nobody got in touch with the Last of the Summer Wine, as I was hoping. But a couple of people did. I'll let Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo, Matt go through a few of these.
So, on Twitter we'll do first. Is that the Book of Daniel? Is that his Twitter name?
I've looked... No, that's the name of the show.
Oh, right. Devil's Playdate. Now, is that
Devil's Playdate was the Twitter name.
Oh, okay. The Book of Daniel.
The Book of Daniel. I've looked this up. It was broadcast on NBC in America in 2006, and it was an edgy, challenging show about Christians. So this, set in New York, and by looking down the list of people, I can't recognise anyone I've ever heard of. So. Apparently it caused a lot of controversy. It was cancelled mid-season, so obviously meant a lot to this person, but not something I've ever heard of.
At Glass1 NCISON, Glass Incision. Siobhan Parker at Siobhan P77 says Monroe, which I know is one of Luke's favourites.
I
Series
think
2 as well.
so. It was cruelly. In fact, I'll get to this later. But I was in a room last night with the people
here
from
we
New,
go.
with the people
Get
from
the
New
net ready,
Tricks.
get the net ready.
With
Get the net ready, Matt. Yep, I'm ready.
I was in the room with the people from New Tricks, and I wanted to go over them and say to them, "You got Monroe cancelled," because they
would have
did.
welcomed you with open arms about that comment.
I know they did. It's a shame. It's just a mighty ratings winner, and Monroe happened to be on the wrong night, so that went sadly.
Going down
On
to
Friday nights then.
at his cheekiness says two
Love
I've not
it.
heard of: Lion's Den and Vanished.
I
think it's ironic Vanished is none anymore.
I've done my research on these two.
Oh, well done,
See?
Gary.
Yep, look at this. Lion's Den was actually a show I watched. It starred Rob Lowe out of The West Wing. There you
Oh,
are.
yeah.
There's mentioned this week. And he was a lawyer, newly appointed to a long-established law firm. So it was like a sort of a John Grisham type thing. And it did star quite a few good people. Matt Craven, Elizabeth Mitchell, Carl Chandler from Friday Night Lights, and David Krumholtz, who ended up in Numbers as well.
I'll stop you when there's a name I recognise. Keep
Yeah.
going.
It was
Okay.
shown on Channel 5. I don't know if you remember, Channel 5 showed this and The Shield back to back without
remember Channel
adverts. Without adverts in between the two.
Why was
channels.
that?
I
Why
don't
was
know.
that?
Vanish was a thing that was on Channel 4, I think, and it was a single story arc about finding someone who had vanished. I think she was a senator's daughter or something like
It wasn't
that.
about like the spot cleaner.
No.
It gets rid
certainly
of
wasn't.
carpet stains.
Also in that one, funnily enough, that was headlined by Kyle Chandler. Funnily enough.
Headlined.
Alright.
So there is
Headline makes him sound like he was in a Vegas show.
Yeah, this
Okay.
person
Headline.
obviously liked a bit of Kyle Chandler.
Running through some
Yeah.
more of these, of course, Lauren Jones has been in touch at Lauren Jones 407. North Square, which is the legal drama, I believe, that preceded Silk. Same writer.
It did, same
Henry
writer.
Jones was in it, and
Phil Davis.
Yeah. And then I've got a couple more here on
Okay.
Twitter. Michael
Twitter.
Michael Fox says at it, which is at Idol Michael says.
Oh, yes.
Brilliant.
Obvious answer Firefly. Very non-obvious answer 15-1.
See, now I can't help but agree with that one. 15-1 was
Yeah.
great viewing. Well,
James to Firefly.
James Hedges at James_R_Hedges also says Firefly or Firefly as he's put here, and or Porridge, which I believe wasn't cancelled, just sort of.
No, just
Finished.
everyone in
It's
it.
a big problem,
Everyone in it died.
There's a
And
big
then
problem with College, like Dad's Army. They're all
I'll
dead.
run through some off. What do you call it? Facebook.
Facebook.
Paul also says Firefly. Mandy says Invasion and Jericho. Dave says Flash Forward. Andrew says The Life and Times of Tim, which I believe was animated show that was showed over here on, I think it was like the Virgin Channel or something like that.
Yeah, I
And
remember that.
And just to give you an idea of the people that I talk to on Facebook quite a lot, Helen says Brookside, and Andy says Tis Was, and give us a clue. So that's
Well, yeah. And who wrote the document up this week? Was it Gary?
Yeah.
Can I just slap you again for typing Munro and not Monroe?
yeah, I was gonna.
Oh,
We've been through that every week
You
that
really
that
want
was
to talk
on.
about spelling mistakes in articles this week, do you?
Stu, shut up. Gary got in touch to say Rubicon as well.
Yes.
Was that
Ow.
Gary over here?
That was me. Hi.
Oh, right, okay. Hi, Gary.
It was a BBC 4 programme from America that was very deep and meaningful for the CIA, which really should have got a second series.
Yeah.
To be honest, there's a lot of shows that I think there's not been anything axed that I think didn't deserve to be axed, because what I like is when things go, but then things replace the things, and you know, there's very few programs that I truly miss. There was a show a couple of years ago that Russell T Davies did about a gay man who falls in love with I was going to say a straight woman, just a woman. It starred Alan Davis and Leslie Sharp. It was called Bob and Rose.
Bob and Rose, yeah, that was good.
I
That
recognise
deserved
the name, but
that deserved a second series
Yeah.
to see where it developed. It had Jessica Stevenson, as she was then, from
now
Space
Jessica
and things.
Hines.
Now Hines, yeah, now she's married into the Bean dynasty, I suppose. But yeah, But yeah, that was the one thing that I think the problem with bringing stuff back, like I was a huge Cold Feet fan, but I think bringing that back.
Yeah, but that just ran its course, didn't it?
There has been rumblings of it coming back at some point. I have read in several sort of articles.
Yeah, there's always rumblings about that coming back. But I was a huge Only Fools and Horses fan, and when they brought that back,
yeah.
It's just not. I think actually there's going to be a Jonathan Creek on at Easter, and I think if that does really well, I'd love another series of that.
Whole family at Christmas.
No.
And I know that the first time Red Wolf was brought back, it was terrible. I know the recent series was very good. Was a big improvement, but yeah, often it's not good to look back. I think a lot. This happens a lot in America because shows in America tend to get cancelled a lot more than the UK, or it seems that way. Shows if they don't seem to do very well. In fact, starting very soon. In fact, I think next week is a program called 666 Park Avenue.
Yes, ITV2 have brought
the third episode. So, but over here we do seem to get them eventually. Apart from obviously the Book of Daniel, which never made it over to the UK.
But I will say that UK broadcasters, and there are a few that are going to step all over my point here because there were a few cancellations. Notable that we'll talk about in a moment, but on the whole we're pretty good at sticking with something and seeing the potential in things on television here. And obviously we commission things that do brilliantly in the ratings, but also we commission things again that have got legs and that may need time to find an audience.
I think we give things a second series, whereas I think in America what happens is things don't even make the end of the first.
It goes.
Well, they don't often give them a second episode.
Americans, it does go a lot more on ratings and focus groups and demographics and all that. And if something doesn't work straight away, it's off, it's finished. Whereas, the Brit, certainly on like the terrestrial channels, everything gets more of a chance to grow.
I think because the money they put into it is probably, more relational, in the sense that £1 million spent by a British broadcaster is probably like 10 million in America.
Yeah.
So therefore they want to invest something, and probably, they say to people, we'll give you 2 seasons to get this, right. I mean, we could all name a show.
Having said all
Citizen Calm.
This is Brown's voice.
Yeah, thank you.
Please don't bring me down. I'm feeling good tonight. Talking about Mrs. Brown's boys. Somebody's just got in touch who's listening live via Spreaker and says they'd love to know what we thought about Nashville. Gary, you're the only one of us, I believe, not taking words out of Matt's mouth, that saw Nashville last week. Okay, Gary and Matt, you're the only two that have seen Nashville last week.
Okay, I mean, I wrote an article as well that's on the website, www.thecustardtv.com. Get the plug early.
Yeah.
I really liked this. It stars Connie Britton, who was in Friday Night Lights, and Hayden Panettiere, who was in Heroes, and they are an established country singer and a young up-and-coming country singer who, by purposes of the fact that the established star, Connie's new record isn't doing very well, end up on tour together. And Connie's character is effectively opening for the younger Hayden Panettiere character. There's a bit more to it than that. That's a very basic overview of like the whole storyline.
But it doesn't. I mean, I'm not stereotyping. It doesn't sound like the sort of thing you would like. Country music stars fighting.
Let me tell you why, and then Matt can tell you why he liked it. It was the political aspect of it that intrigued me. There's a mayoral campaign.
I reckon you were supposed to go into politics. I reckon that's what happened.
Yeah.
There's still time, Garrett.
There's still time.
I'm
still young. In MP terms. And I really like the political stuff. Connie Britton's partner or husband is kind of thrust into being a candidate for the local mayor by her father, who's kind of like this kind of puppet master.
Powers Booth,
got all the money.
Who was, I believe, was he the vice president in one of the series of 24? I think.
Oh yes, well remembered. Yes, good
who was very. I really enjoyed his character because he was just like chewing the scenery sort of thing, wasn't he? He was very much sort of just boomed. Let me just shout every line I've got, sort of thing. Because I'm like the mayor.
And what this reminded me of Nashville, it was the very first episode of Brothers and Sisters, which to me had a wonderful opening. A family where a patriarch had been died, left a sort of vacuum in the family, and there was a big political element. In me, the same thing. Nashville's got the music, but there's this political side of it. What worried me with Brothers and Sisters and why I gave up with it is it never really followed that political line. Whereas I really get the impression that Nashville is going to merge together this kind of music, arguments, backstage kind of politics and politics.
That's Nashville. You can catch it on More 4. I wonder why More 4 and not Channel 4 or E4 or...
I think like a lot of the American stuff that Channel 4 buy is now going on to More 4 because they have The Good Wife as well. They put it in a double bill, and both. If I can just talk about Nashville for a moment, both of
you
them.
may off you pop.
Thanks very much. Both
off
The
you
Wife
pop.
and Nashville are sort of quite, female orientated.
Yeah,
a lot of the stuff on they've got like female protagonists, haven't they? I should say, and a lot of the stuff on More 4 is sort of geared towards more of a female audience, sort of like with One Born Every Minute repeats are on there, and there's a lot of Come Dine With Me and Location and stuff like that. But yeah, for me, Nashville, I enjoyed some of it. I enjoyed like the sort of bitchiness between the two female characters. I liked how they sort of distinguished between like the Connie Britton character was more of the old school traditional country, whereas the Hayden Panettiere was more sort of a crossover, like sort of a Taylor Swift type character.
Well,
but
there's a wonderful brewing storyline where she can't really sing and all her stuff is auto-tuned,
auto-tuned,
which I loved.
Yeah.
There's a bit of the X Factor in there as well.
Yeah, just I think though, isn't it that they end up not going on tour together, and it's about their sort of two different stories where she's very much her career's on the up and Connie Britton's trying to save her career.
I tried not to read ahead.
And also, I would say it was quite an easy watch. But I don't know, I couldn't connect with it in the way you did. And part of the reason was I couldn't distinguish between a lot of the male characters in the sort of the country music world. All were about the same, and I could never distinguish between any of them and who they were. And I couldn't who she sort of was in bed with at the end, and who the guy was who she wasn't in bed with, and all that.
There was a kind of like a never-ending role of producers and music people,
guitarists
and band leaders.
Yeah. But over time, I can see it developing. Yeah.
And what was interesting, right at the end of the first episode, which I mentioned in my review, there was a local record producer rang up Connie on tour and played her this new sound, this kind of poetry.
Was he a record producer or a DJ?
It was a DJ type producer, I think.
Yeah.
But equally, those two are actual country music stars, and they are the only ones I believe in the show that are actually singing.
Yeah,
whereas the rest is dubbed.
There's lots of TV news to get through, but while we are reviewing things, I was unable to see Black Mirror last night. I was out. We'll get to why and where I was in a bit, but I was really looking forward to seeing this, and I wasn't able to see it live with my bum on a cushion watching it with the rest of the country. It did do well in the ratings, but it was down on the ratings from last year, partly maybe because it was on late on a Monday night as opposed to 9 o'clock on a Sunday. I don't know. We've talked about whether scheduling matters or not in the past.
Gypsies, though.
It did, yeah. You can always count on the Gypsies for a good lead-in.
Yep.
But so again, it's my podcast, and yet this is Gary and Matt talking again about something that they've seen and I haven't. But Black Mirror, we all decided looked intriguing to say the least from the trailers that were all over the web. How did it live up to expectations in the end for you?
Matt, do you want to go first on this?
Yeah. I'll just a brief sort of plot summary of it. It was Hayley Atwell, who was most recently in Restless, whose character had just in the first sort of 10 minutes, her partner dies and she's sort of grieving, and then one of her friends says, there's a way you can still talk to him, and it's this program that uses all of the stuff he's ever said online to create like a sort of online sort of virtual version of him. And then
did they say whether you could do it with Skype? Because I'm just thinking if one of you's not here for any reason, I could just do the podcast, just me and just the two of you just agreeing with me all the time.
And obviously, has that ever happened?
There's no way you'll find clips of that. On shows.
No, fair enough.
And obviously, she hasn't sort of got over his death, so she goes further and further into the sort of higher and higher levels of how far this program works. And what I liked about it, and this is what I liked about the first series, my favourite episode was the sort of the second episode where they were all on the treadmills, and it was the quieter sort of episode of the three. Not a lot happened, and in the first half of the first 2/3 of this episode, a lot of the action was just her on her own in this sort of house that was full of memories, and then sort of talking to the virtual version of the partner online, and I loved all of that, and I loved the fact that Charlie Brooker, who obviously writes it, has got a sort of knowledge of all this technology, and the fact that it is almost plausible that this could happen.
That was the question I was going to ask you. Did you feel like you could relate to it in some way?
Think until, and I think we can do without spoiling it. Certainly, Gary might spoil it in a minute. But what happened? The final level of this program, and I'm not going to spoil it for you.
We call it the third act, I suppose.
The
third act of the
final level of the program was for me where it stopped being believable and where it went into almost sort of like horror territory almost. Well, and that's where I sort of fell out of it a little bit. Like the first episode of Series 1 with the stuff with the pig, which I thought was a bit over the top, and that's why I enjoyed the other 2 episodes a little bit more. But overall, it was a success, but I would like the next 2 episodes to be a bit like less in your face, a bit more subtle. Anyway, Gary.
Because a lot of the criticisms of the first series was that it was just Charlie Brooker venting his opinions on people through various different characters. Did you feel that, Gary, in this one?
Not so much. I think this was more a critique on communication and where certain media could end up. I think there was a wonderful satirism of Skype and of Twitter and of how people can use that. Certainly the program, as Matt mentioned, that went to these different levels was, I think as Matt said, totally believable. You know, the software that she was using to paint and to do her drawings was probably something you can get on Windows 8, very similar.
I never knew
I thought it was cartoons or something,
cartoon.
wasn't it?
I never exactly knew what that was.
She talked about deadlines, therefore I assumed it's something print media-wise. And I think, and again, perhaps we won't go spoilery because there's not a need to. To me, the actual ending, the very final part of the episode was to me the last bit, because it wasn't an ending, it was more of a kind of a nod to what could happen. And
but I think he did that a lot.
I didn't like it, I prefer, and actually I agree with you.
Series 1 he did a lot of that.
Well,
certainly
that's right.
The 2 episodes he wrote, because he didn't like that last episode.
To me, I was wanting more, and in the preview, I wanted more of this suspense about the third act. You know, what was going to step out, what was going to happen, and actually, I was looking for that to go wrong, rather than this kind of twee, happy part that they projected. Yeah.
The news has also come out this week, I don't know if you had this, that Robert Downey Jr. has bought the rights to the 3rd episode of the first series, the Brief History of... Is it the Brief History of You or something like that?
Brief History of You, which was actually my favourite idea of the 3.
And it was the one that Charlie didn't write. It was Jesse Armstrong of Peep Show that on Fresh Meat wrote that.
It's my favourite idea of the 3, and I just think that is, again, completely plausible in a strange way. That's what's funny about Black Mirror. The first one of the first series, which was the pig episode, and I don't need to say anything else other than that. That's my least favourite, because I think it was just there for shock value.
My favourite was the middle one. The one, was it called 500 something about tokens, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was all about tokens, wasn't it?
I liked the pig one because it was Brooker being satirical at his best, and that's what I'm a fan of Weekly Wipe rather than the what was the thing that
Dead
Set. I prefer when he's being totally satirical about things that he dislikes rather than his social commentary.
I think there's a way of doing that without being like as in your face as they were doing in that pig episode.
Exactly.
What I think will be interesting is when this series is finished, we'll come back to this conversation and we'll say which one we liked out of the 3. And I think that would be important because now we've only seen one, or next one next week. But I think this will get better ratings each week.
And actually, advertising's funny, because I wasn't looking forward to Black Mirror. I liked the first series. It wasn't something I was desperate to see a second one of. And yet I saw all the trailers that were bouncing around YouTube and on Charlie Brooker's Twitter, and it really got me interested again. So the way they portrayed this in advertising on Channel 4 was really well done. It was
Channel 4 adverts where he flashed up those symbols in between the adverts.
Oh, I see. I watched it online.
Subversive. What you missed was that there's this kind of T-shaped thing. I don't know quite what it is. I don't know whether it talks, whether it's something about the other episodes, one of the later episodes.
The next one is something to do with like a symbol or something almost. Maybe
it looks very peculiar, the next one, but I've got faith in it. I'm taking a break from the reviews for just a second because there's quite a bit of news to get through. Mr. Selfridge has got a second series. That's kind of a surprise and kind of not.
I'm surprised, I have to say, because Sorry to sort of cut you off, Luke.
No, you're fine. We're a team, Matt.
Yeah.
I'll cut you off soon.
We just did it again. This one was meant to be, because as we said earlier, it was 10 episodes long, but it was meant to be 2 series of 5. And then, all this stuff happened with the Paradise and everything got shifted around, and they put these, 2 series of 5 into 1 series of 10. But I'm surprised. I can't really see where it's going to go, because it's already struggling. And I mean, it is based on a book, but there's only so many stories about, Harry Selfridge that you can get out of the one book. So I'm going to be interesting to see where it goes, because I mean, they had like a sort of big cliffhanger at episode 5, but it just doesn't seem like it's a show that has got that much legs to do like a second series. But we shall see.
No, but it's going to be broadcast in America as well on PBS. So, and generally PBS. I think a lot of people have found it quite irritating. To be fair.
Well, I think a lot of people. No, I think some people have, but a lot of people have liked it. I think there's people who are put off by Pivot, and I have to say this most recent episode where he wasn't in it because Mr. Selfridge was hit by a car at the end of episode.
Oh, I think I might have been driving.
So episode 6, he was in bed, unconscious for most of it. So it was actually
must have been a great episode.
Some of his best acting.
Yeah, just sort of mumbling occasionally. Anyway, carry on, Luke.
So that's coming back, and we know Ripper Street's coming back. So that's 2 massive Sunday night shows that may well end up against each other this time next year as well. It'd be interesting to see how the scheduling goes. Theo Paphitis announced just after the podcast last week that he's leaving Dragon's Den, and you've put here, does it mean it's over? Personally, I don't know whether it means it's over, but I wouldn't mind. I love Dragon's Den, and I loved it for years, but I'm sort of over it.
I mean, with Hillary leaving as well, hasn't she? So there's 2 spots to fill.
I just think there's not. I mean, it's like it feels a little bit like The Apprentice. It feels like this type of show has run its course, and therefore it would be good if they went out now before it got a bit samey and boring.
I mean, the last series I watched, because I had to review every episode of the last one, so I watched all of it, and after a while you know where it's going, you know if they're going to get an investment, and you sort of it's that obvious really.
Here's what I think. Here's what I think is the only thing that can resurrect the show is actually if they do a proper search for a 4th person and actually generate some buzz.
4th and 5th. They need 2.
Yeah, 3rd and 4th. Sorry, if they actually maybe have some sort of show that shows them interviewing and other entrepreneurs.
Well, it might be that the Innocent Smoothie guy might be one of them, because he did a show on BBC Three, didn't he?
The bra woman has been mentioned as well. It's often on The Apprentice. You're fired.
Bra woman.
Well, she's on the Dre woman.
Michelle Moan.
Thank you.
Is that who you're saying?
I love the bra woman.
Yeah.
It's funny enough that Gary brought up The Apprentice there. It's as if he's reading the document we've written.
As if he wrote the document again.
Yeah, it is almost. Badly. Young Apprentice, the series that Alan Sugar spends time with young children as opposed to young-minded adults.
There was a sample joke coming, and I'm just pulling you away.
No, you're just heading me off at the pass. That's gone as well. Not something that nobody's going to be upset by that. No one's going to be shocked by that.
I actually quite like it. I almost prefer it to the older one in a way. And I mean,
I know what you mean.
As long, and I think he enjoys doing it more. And he was quite actually upset that they cancelled it.
It's more in line with his vision. And certainly, if anyone's ever read his book, which I have, it's more in line with where he feels that the productivity for entrepreneurship comes is in younger people.
And I know when they
started young.
When they first mentioned that it was coming to an end, because this isn't sort of shocking news.
This is confirmation, really.
Yeah. They said that he was thinking of taking Young Apprentice to another channel. Now I don't think that's going to happen, but I think he likes doing that more than the actual Apprentice, which is sort of almost died a death, as we said in our sort of review of the year.
I predict that the next series of The Apprentice will be the last.
And I'd agree with that.
That's breaking news here. Also, something we only discussed this time last week. If only we knew then. The Hour is going away as well.
This is again not a surprise, but I think in my opinion.
Yeah.
So that is the main news, apart from the news that I want to talk about, which was the BBC drama launched last night.
Get the net ready.
was
I got the net.
You got the net. Well, let's just go through a few things. There was a 10-minute speech by Ben Stevenson, controller of drama at the BBC.
Well, I've also met him, so...
I know, and he's lovely. He's lovely. In fact,
on two separate occasions, so...
He's lovely, he really is. And he's got
a bit like Michael Sheen.
He's got a brilliant passion for drama, which I think is... really shines through in everything he's commissioned so far. He announced several new commissions that I'm excited about. Doctor Who fans might be interested to know that the next series of the aforementioned Who will be in 3D. I don't know whether that's something to be excited about or not, really. I'm not particularly.
A few Who forums that I've been around, and that's not easy to say, doesn't really seem to be that much of a problem. They're more interested in what's going to be in the 50th anniversary episode rather than being in 3D.
He also announced the welcome returns as far as BBC One are concerned for Call the Midwife. That'll be back for a festive special at the end of the year, and a third series in 2014. Third series as well for astonishingly good ratings. Death in Paradise will be back on Tuesday nights as well in 2014. So those are the big ones, alongside Atlantis, which is going to fill the Merlin slot in the autumn.
That was a weird one to see the preview of.
Yeah, I mean, you know me, it's not my cup of tea, that sort of thing. But I think it's interesting that although they've stopped Merlin, they're not giving up on that early Saturday evening slot.
Yeah, that kind of kids
kids, family,
Lord of the Rings Hobbit-esque type adventures.
Hobbit-esque, yes. Also in the show reel, which you can see online at thecustardtv.com now, you were saying that, and I agree completely. I got there last night in London for this launch, and was speaking to the guy who made the show reel. He did a brilliant job with it. But I was saying to him, it's only 3 minutes, and it features all of the drama that's coming in 2013 from the BBC. That means 27 new commissions or recommissions are in that 3-minute piece. And it doesn't say, this is our girl, this is this, this is that.
There was even a clip of EastEnders in there, wasn't there?
Yes, there was. But to be fair, apparently they played around with captions and putting in the titles. They didn't like it. Also, he confirmed Luther is back very soon. I am literally itching with excitement about that.
I'm
and
hoping
Alice
bank holiday weekend job may be in
March. Can't you imagine? And Alice will be back as well. And Ben Stevenson did say it's absolutely terrifying, the first one, and he did scream when he was watching the previews. That's how scary the first episode of Luther is. And that Alice is back, and does terrible things with a black glove. Cannot wait for that. It's going to be so good. I bet Idris Elba, I was stood next to him and I was desperate to say something, but he was just being mobbed the whole time.
You could have just said, "You're so damn cool."
I know. Well, I think he knows that. Do you know what though? He was dressed like Luther. He was dressed like Luther. Yeah, but kind of. But it was one of those nights. There was a lot of people there. I had a wonderful time. I'm not going to go on and on about it. But
you've written a nice article on the Custard TV.
I have, with only one error.
Point people in the direction of that.
Yeah, but also, everybody you can think of was there. So much so that there's people that you were just desperate to speak to, you didn't have time. Spoke very briefly to Stephen Moffat, who refused to give away how Sherlock survived, no matter how hard I pushed him.
What I read recently as well is that apparently even Martin Freeman doesn't know.
Martin Freeman doesn't know, no. Yeah, apparently no one knows. At this stage, nobody knows. He confirmed that much. He also was very nervous about how Doctor Who would be perceived just because of how long it's been on, you know, and how much excitement there is to the 50th anniversary. And Reed spoke to me about Last Tango in Halifax and said that it was the most successful thing she's ever been a part of, and she's nervous about how the second series will be commissioned. But all in all, what it showcased again is what we talk about on this week after week, is that BBC drama is at the peak of its success, and it really is stronger than it's ever been. Over the last few years. Yeah. Ben Stevenson's been doing this job for 4 years, and he's completely changed the outlook of BBC drama. I mean, to be fair, when I started to become TV obsessed, I used to watch a lot of ITV because BBC used to be Inspector Lindley Mysteries and the Alan Pascoe.
They've certainly upped their game.
And I was never really into that.
I think as well, you can say within the last year, sort of ITV have sort of tried to fight back because they are trying to fight new things themselves. So, you know, like last autumn and now, you know, we started by talking about Broadchurch and Lightfield. They are sort of trying. I know they've still got their mainstays, but like Lewis is coming to an end, so they're trying.
The problem with ITV.
From Lewis, I think.
Yeah.
The problem. Well, Foyle's War is going to take over from Mr. Selfridge. I don't know when Endeavour's coming, but the problem with ITV is they've wasted the best time of year for good telly.
Yeah, it's not going to be raining and snowing and horrible and cold in June. So
exactly. But yeah, Ben Stevenson, I had a great night at the BBC drama launch, absolutely fantastic. But I missed Nicholas Lyndhurst. Somebody I was with saw him, and I wanted to go and see him, but I missed him. Apparently he's not that tall, disappointingly. And it did make me laugh that he's going from Only Fools and Horses to New Tricks, which are two of the most repeated shows on the BBC.
Proof that you can show an old horse new tricks.
Well, let's not talk horses, because we don't know. We only had cheese straws and olives at the BBC, no meat.
I'm feeling a bit hungry.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a great night. It was BBC drama really, really strong. What was we? Oh, the hour's gone. We talked about that. Black Mirror we've done. Yeah. Hotel is finishing last episode on Sunday. Really upset about it because it's been one of my favourites.
Did you have a little tear in your eye, Luke, in where he had to give the speech to telling the staff? Because people who don't watch The Hotel, it's about a sort of
people who don't watch
hotel that's sort of falling apart. The staff are all in it. The manager is hilarious, and he can't even pronounce the name of the hotel properly.
It's a silent S.
It's a silent S. It's the Grosvenor. He calls it the Grosvenor, which is hilarious. It's just one of the funniest programs on TV.
It is. It'll be sadly missed.
In this penultimate episode, he resigned to the fact they had to sell the hotel, and there was a scene where he told the whole staff, and it just got quite emotional quite quickly. But then that was sort of counteracted later on when they had to sort of compete in the regatta, and they almost fell in the water. So, but a hotel.
It's funny if you.
And I think I read that it is going to come back with the new owners, and they're trying to retain Mark to host some of the events. So I think there is still a chance of another season hotel.
And I only want to touch briefly on Being Eileen. What I want to say about Being Eileen is it's a fantastic cast, really full of well-known faces and decent actors. Terrible script, terrible scheduling. Why is it even on?
It's not even that it's sort of on the level of like awfulness that Citizen Khan or Mrs. Brown's, but it's just lazy and tired, and you could do so much more with these characters and these actors, and it's just Sue Johnston's character who's this like widow who's trying to live her life over again. We've seen this. And there's nothing. All the characters seem like stereotypes.
I just don't know why it's there. I don't know what I mean. Lapland, which it spawned from, which was a Christmas drama a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, it didn't do massively well. No one you speak to on the streets going, "Oh, I wish they'd do a full series of Lapland."
And old Stephen Graham has now been replaced by Dean Andrews.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I love all the actors in it. Elizabeth Barrington, who's in Stella as well, she's brilliant. Julie Graham's brilliant. Sue Johnston's brilliant. But like you say, it's just lazy. Yeah. It's on at a weird time.
Yeah,
I don't know what it's there for.
Confidence to put it on. Like, it's in the 10:35 slot. I know that's sort of where Outnumbered started, where Citizen Khan was, so it's not unusual for like comedies to be pop there and still do well. But it just seems like they could have put it before.
But what is the point of it?
That tells you a lot about what they meant for it, though.
Yeah.
I think that,
what's the point of it, though?
Have I got time quickly just to talk about People Like Us very quickly?
You have. Well, when you say People Like Us, you mean the series and not. You don't just want to talk about people like me and Gary.
People Like Us was the new BBC Three docu-soap set around Harper Hay in Manchester, which was once voted the sort of poorest neighbourhood in the country. What I like about it is that it's not another Towie or Made in Chelsea. Instead, it's like an old school docu-soap. Like, I don't know if you remember Paddington Green back.
Do you know what? That was exactly what I was thinking of. Paddington Green. It's the new Paddington Green. That was years ago now, but I remember the impact that had on me at that time.
And I mean, it's a mixture of sorry, Luke, were you going to say?
No, you go on.
It's got a mixture of humour to it. I mean, the main family in it, the Wakefields, who run this rundown like laundrette with like graffiti strewn all over the walls of the office, and none of the dryers are working. And it's sort of counteracted with like there's this young alcoholic in the first episode. The second episode has this like young single mum, and it's just saying like there's all these aspects of life in this, in this district, and it's sort of celebrating, the ups and the downs. And I just think it's a hilarious program. My favourite character has to be Paul, the stepdad, who has all the best lines. He's like this guy who's just living in this house full of women and hates them going on about dresses and shoes.
But I think that you say it's not another Towie or Made in Chelsea. That's a very good point, because it very easily could have been, and I think they worked hard on trying to make it something a bit different.
Some of the scenes do seem a little bit like they've been set up, but not to the extent that Towie is. I mean, they're touting it as like a real reality show, and I don't think it is fully, but I really enjoy it, and I've talked to a few of the people involved on Twitter, and they all seem really, really nice.
And do you know what else is interesting about making a program like that?
Yeah.
Is with Towie and Made in Chelsea, you get ad breaks. This is a full hour on the BBC. It's a lot of effort has gone into trying to make it.
Series as well.
Yeah,
6 full
there's
hours
a lot to get through.
Yeah. Anyway,
but parts of it were just difficult to watch, and then parts of it were real.
I've watched the second one, which is also very good. So hopefully we'll have a bit more time to talk about it next week as well. But I think we need to move on now.
It's one of those things that you don't expect to like, isn't it? And then it just surprises you. Well,
just very warm characters, just very likeable, colourful,
There's a word coming.
characters.
Oh,
No.
Okay.
Carry on.
I just want to say as well, something I'm really excited about. We've only got a few minutes, and I don't know whether Gary and Matt, this is even their sort of thing, but the BBC in a couple of weeks are bringing back one of my favourite shows. It's landmark. It's called Child of Our Time.
Oh yeah, it's just popped up on the previews.
They started to film these children on the millennium when they were born, and as if by magic in 2013 or 2012 when they filmed, they are now all 12. And it's just really, I'm going to use it, charming. It's really...
We almost made it.
We almost made it a whole show without using the C word.
It's a bit like 7 Up, I suppose, isn't it?
It's exactly like that. But the kids are really articulate, really sweet. You must watch it when it's on in a couple of weeks on BBC One. Child of Our Time with Professor Robert Winston is just fantastic.
We need to round up what's coming on television soon.
Should we
quickly then? 2 minutes 30. Off you pop.
Should we do one of these each? Right, I'll go first. Spartacus War of the Damned is the third and final series in this sort of Romanesque type thing that's been on Sky 1.
Yeah.
Vegas is coming back to Sky Atlantic.
Gary, you've seen this?
Vegas. Yeah, sorry, yes, I have seen Vegas. Dennis Quaid, Michael Chiklis, kind of like Sopranos set in the 1950s Vegas before it became big and popular. Very good.
The Walking Dead Series 3 Part 2, they split it up on Fox, but it's back on the 15th, which is Friday at 10.
Okay, Let's Dance for Comic Relief, which is back on Saturday night at 6:50. More of the same, really, celebrities making fools of themselves for Comic Relief. I'll just mention Complicit as well, because I went to the preview of this.
Yeah, I really want to see this.
Yeah, it's a one-off spy surveillance drama almost, with David Oyelowo, who used to be in Spooks, and Arsha Ali, who was recently in Beaver Falls and also in Four Lions. It's very, very slow to start off with, but it does have its moments. And I would recommend everyone who likes sort of proper drama watch it. And unusually for a Channel 4 drama, it's on at 9 rather than 10, because it is a 2-hour.
I think because it's 2 hours long, that's why they've had to do that.
And you wouldn't normally hear us recommending this sort of thing, but Her Majesty's Prison, a 2-part documentary series about a young offenders prison in Aylesbury, is going to replace Lewis next Monday at 9 on ITV. It's actually well worth a watch. A lot of their previous prison documentaries about really Holloway and Strangeways have been worth a watch. So
Strangeways also makes an appearance in this week's People Like Us, because it's right near Harper Hay. There's a lot of mentions of Strangeways. Anyway, just a bit.
Well, we're cutting it a bit fine. If you want to get in touch with me on Twitter, I'm Luke Custardtv.
I'm at The Gary Show.
And I'm Matt's TV Bites. There's some teas in there somewhere.
Thank you very much. We're back. Thank you. You can go to the website, thecustardtv.com, to read all the articles on what's coming and what we've loved, and catch up on all the podcasts you may have missed. And we will catch you next time here at the Custard TV Podcast.
See ya.
Bye.
Got something to say? Get in touch with us now.